Hi, it's Steven. If you know me from the radio thing, you know that I kind of consider myself a pretty well-rounded geek. Love my sports, obviously huge music fan, and I've always been a comic book guy. Once upon a time, I wanted to draw those for a living. Clearly that did not work out, but it was just something I picked up in my reckless youth when I couldn't sleep at night, and I've had a love for it ever since. Over the weekend, DC, Warner Brothers, launched DC Fandome. What is Fandom, you might ask? Well, once upon a time, up until the pandemic, there was this thing called Comic-Con. There are many of them that happen in cities across the country, but the big one, obviously, is in San Diego. That's where all the movie studios, all the big stars, everybody went to Comic-Con, and you dressed up, you had fun. It was a hell of a weekend for people who love entertainment. And because of things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, once upon a time, being a comic book fan, you were kind of an outcast or a geek, but now the fact that those movies are billion-dollar franchises, well, it's kind of opened up those characters to a whole new world of people who can't wait to see what comes next, and the fair share of people who feel like it's a bit of an oversaturated market. Either way, comic books are big business in Hollywood right now, and over the weekend, Warner Brothers had what they call DC Fandome. They did this last year during the pandemic, and it was actually pretty cool. It's this virtual thing that they introduced some of their upcoming projects and what was happening and pretty much got people excited. So they did it again this year, and I gotta say, man, it just didn't quite land the way it did a year ago. Not to say it was all bad, it was just you didn't really get too much for about 4 hours worth of watching if you tuned in to view it. This time last year, we were getting our first look at Robert Pattinson as Batman, we were getting the promise of a Black Adam movie, the promise of a Flash movie, and, well, we got all those things again this year, but we didn't really necessarily get any more than we did a year ago, and therein lies part of the problem. So let's talk about DC Fandome. What did we get? Well, I was excited that they paid homage to the 20th anniversary of Smallville. Smallville will always hold a special place in my heart because it was the first time that I had moved out of state for something other than college. I was away from my family and friends, living in a new place, working a first time starting a new career, and 9/11 happened, which changed everything for pretty much everybody at the time. So young me gravitated to Smallville. That's what I watched. It was the story of a young Clark Kent in high school trying to figure out who he was and who he was going to be, and it ended up being a really cool show that lasted 10 years. Sure, it wasn't the traditional version of Superman, but that didn't make it bad nonetheless. So it was nice to see Smallville get a nod on DC Fandom. The other thing that we got, well, we got Cam Newton pimping Superman-style hats, which, again, nobody cared. If you tune in for that, I'm sorry, but why didn't you give us the good stuff? And you did, just in small doses. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson showed up. He's had a passion project called Black Adam for a long, long time. And Black Adam on a power level, he ranks right up there with Superman. He can throw down with the best of them. He's been portrayed as a hardcore villain, and he's been portrayed as kind of an anti-hero. We're not really sure which version we're getting, but we did get about a minute and 20-second look at the trailer.
Shazam!
lot to unpack there. They did also show some concept art of what he was going to look like. And now, in the comic book, traditionally, he is the archenemy of Shazam, but they've already said that in the Shazam sequel, Black Adam and Shazam aren't going to throw down. There's been a lot of talk that maybe Black Adam and Superman, the Henry Cavill version, will throw down at some point in time, but it hasn't been set in stone, even though Henry Cavill and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson are really good friends. That is something I would like to see on screen, but who knows if we will ever get that. As far as this trailer goes, it supposedly takes place a little bit in the past, a little bit in the present, and they're also going to introduce the first ever live screen, big screen version of the Justice Society. Now, if you watch Stargirl on the CW, you see kind of a different take on the Justice Society. Smallville had its own take of the Justice Society. Legends of Tomorrow had its own take of the Justice Society. They were the older superheroes that came before the Justice League of America. It's a lot to unpack, but either way, we're getting a different version on screen, played by Pierce Brosnan is in there, Dr. Fate as Dr. Fate. You'll get Atom Smasher, you'll get a new version of Hawkman, and all of it is shaping up to be pretty cool. The Rock has promised that this is the hardest he's ever worked on a film and really wants to do this justice, and is going to change the way the DC Universe looks. Hopefully, that's the case, because when it comes to their comic book movies, they've fallen just a little bit short of what Marvel does. Not to say that they haven't done some good stuff. Really enjoyed Shazam, really enjoyed Aquaman, but I went into both of those movies with little to no expectations and was pleasantly surprised on both accounts. We did get a quick look at Aquaman, but they're really early into filming, so not enough for a trailer yet, just some behind-the-scenes stuff, and I dig it. Aquaman is kind of like the DC version of Thor, at least the way they're portraying him on the movies. He's comical, he's big, it's fun. I had fun with Aquaman. For all the people that hated it, watch it again. It's probably not as bad as you think. A year ago, we got knowledge that Flash was going to adopt the Flashpoint saga for a movie. What is Flashpoint? In the comics and on the TV show on the CW starring Grant Gustin as the Flash, they've done this a couple of times. Flashpoint is essentially the Flash is fast enough that he can break the time barrier, so he goes back in time to save his mother. Flash's pivotal moment in his life was when his mother died. His father is accused of the crime and goes to prison, and Flash has always wanted to figure out who killed his mom. So he decides if he goes back in time, he can stop that from happening and keep his mom alive. He does, but not without consequences. You know, if you mess with time, time messes back. So in this version, in Flashpoint, he goes back in time, he saves his mom, but in the process, she lives. So he never goes into forensics to try to solve crimes, never gets in an accident, never develops powers as the Flash. So he has to figure out how he's changed the universe for the better or the worst, which leads him to Batman, because let's be honest, Batman, smarter than anybody else in the room. Only in the Flashpoint world, he finds a Batman that's not the Bruce Wayne we all know. In this world, Bruce Wayne was killed along with his mother in that alley that fateful night, and his father, Thomas, is an old, grizzled, murdering, gun-toting version of Batman that's actually pretty cool, but just not the Batman we're used to. Needless to say, they're going to take this in the movie in kind of that direction, but not necessarily. We don't know what we're going to get for sure. Now, you saw Flash do a little back-in-time stuff if you watch the Snyder cut of Justice League, and again, likable character, not bad, but we didn't get a lot with this. We already knew Michael Keaton was going to be there. We do get him narrating what looks to be a pretty interesting trailer.
Tell me something. You can go anywhere you want, right? Any timeline, any universe. Why do you want to stay and fight to save this one? You change the future, and you change the past.
Are you in?
Some good stuff in there. The problem is we didn't get enough. You don't get much hint to the story. You see the Batman cowl on the ground and the costume behind it and the blood. And there's been images of that Michael Keaton bat symbol with blood on it. We don't know where that's necessarily coming from. Ben Affleck is also coming back as his version of Batman, and he's filmed some scenes. They've showed behind-the-scenes pictures have leaked, so we've already seen this. Why they didn't show more in this trailer, I will never know. You get a couple of different versions of the Flash. You get the one in the shiny new costume that is supposedly he gets from the Ben Affleck version of Bruce Wayne in the Justice League that we've already seen in theaters. He continues off of that. The other version of a Flash is from an alternate universe. I know, it gets a little confusing, but that version is the one that shows himself spray painting the lightning bolts on stuff, so it'll be interesting to see if that might be the villain of the story, or if there's a villain we haven't seen yet. Either way, we don't know which universe Michael Keaton is talking about. Is he talking about the Batman 1989 universe? Because in the beginning of the trailer, when they pull up in the Prius, that's both versions of the Flash showing up at what is supposed to be the Wayne Manor from 1989. They did their best to kind of make it look the same way. You can see the Batcave where he pulls the lever. That's the same one as Bruce Wayne pulled the lever in 1989. All of that stuff is the same, so you don't know which version of Batman we're getting. Now, in the TV show Batman Beyond, which was a phenomenal cartoon in the late 90s, you get an old version of Bruce Wayne who literally was Batman up until the point where he physically couldn't do it anymore, and he kind of hung around as a senior citizen mentor to the new Batman. Maybe they're talking about doing this because there are rumors that that's the role Michael Keaton is going to have going forward. He's going to be the older Bruce Wayne that kind of mentors everybody else down the road. Not sure how that plays out. The other girl that you see in the trailer is this movie's version of Supergirl, but there's a lot of questions about that. Is she the Supergirl of the 1989 version where there is no Superman, or because her S symbol is the same as the House of L symbol from the Henry Cavill movies, if you watch Man of Steel, there's an empty pod. There's a lot of rumors that she's that Supergirl from that version, so we'll have to wait and see. Again, I don't understand why they didn't give us more. They gave us a little clip of what we already knew, which is fine, I guess, but again, I wanted a little more, I say. And they also, at the end, you can see him pulling the tarp over. Everybody knows what that is. That's the 1989 Batmobile. It's probably the best Batmobile they've done yet, but they won't even show you the Batmobile that we know is there. It was cool, but frustrating at the same time. So we'll have to wait and see. Flash is in production now, and it looks pretty cool despite the fact that Ezra Miller is kind of a jerk in real life. Not the best choice for the Flash, but we'll see what happens. There's no word yet on what Superman is going to show up. Will there be a Superman in the Flashpoint movie or the Flash movie, and will it be Henry Cavill? We don't necessarily know. They did make some announcements about Superman, and this is probably the part of the video where I'll piss some people off because, well, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. In the Superman comic book universe now, the son of Superman, Jonathan Kent, is the new Superman going forward. He came out as bisexual last week, and he's now going to fight climate control and everything else, which, to me, I feel like it's just kind of pandering, if you will. There are already a lot of gay and homosexual characters. I understand you need to give that group someone to look up to, and I understand where you're going with it, but you're doing a really good job of that with the Batwoman that's on TV. You're doing a really good job of that with some of the other characters that you have brought out, some of the secondary characters that it kind of makes sense for. I hate when they mess with iconic characters and names, and part of the reason is you can make the argument, well, this is the different Superman, it's his son. Fair enough, but you know the name Superman, and Superman has kind of an iconic thing that goes with him. Superman also came out this week and said that they're changing, for years it was Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Now, Superman was never Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Somewhere along the line, the American Way thing just got added to that slogan. They've now changed it to Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. I am 100% on board with that because technically, if you are being real, the character's not American. He's extraterrestrial. He's lived on Earth in America, but not necessarily following the American way. I like the idea of a better tomorrow. Why? Well, because Superman, the symbol on his chest, not an S, it means hope, and that's kind of what that character is. He's always embodied the best of everything. He's the guy that doesn't mess up. He's the guy that everybody else strives to be. So Superman slogan being Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. Perfectly okay with that. Just give me Henry Cavill in another Superman movie with a script that actually works for him. But we'll get to that later. The star of this DC Fandome, despite the 3 hours you had to sit through to get through is, once again, the Batman. The most profitable character. It's tough for them to go wrong with Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman was arguably the best part of Batman vs. Superman. The Christian Bale series was phenomenal. Now we get Matt Reeves' take on the Batman. Now this has been in development for a while, and kind of in development hell. Originally it was supposed to be Ben Affleck's Batman. He and Warner Brothers had a little conflict, and of course Ben went to rehab, so it fell to Matt Reeves, who was going to direct it and cast Ben Affleck. That all changed. Affleck out altogether. And they went with Robert Pattinson as Batman. Now, before you go, Edward Cullen, Pattinson has done a lot since Twilight, and he's actually a solid actor. I like him casting-wise. I'm just on the fence about this so far. Now, it looks cool. I will say, love the Nirvana cover, love the darkness, love the movie. We are definitely getting a darker Batman, and as someone who has the mark of the bat emblazoned on their arm, it's a character that I hold near and dear to my heart. But the trailer so far, it looks dark and brutal.
Police! Hands up! Stay still! Get out of here!
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning. I've been trying to reach you. Fire the gun! This is a powder keg, and Riddler's the match.
I can take care of myself.
If this continues, it won't be long before you've nothing left.
I don't care what happens to me.
It's only gonna get worse for you.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart. Hear everything they say, ain't you?
Maybe we're not so different. Who are you under there?
I'm vengeance. What's black and blue and dead all over? You. Dear God.
I got you! I got you!
A lot going on in there. First of all, you're going to see some mob family ties that we didn't get to see in other movies, and they're kind of taking this as a loose adaptation of The Long Halloween. It's a year 2 story, so we're not getting another origin story. It's a very young Batman who's young in his career, and in The Long Halloween, Batman was trying to track down a killer who killed a different person every holiday throughout the year. This time around, it looks like he's trying to follow up on a series of murders that seem to be all committed by the Riddler, played by Paul Dano. Now, this is not the Jim Carrey Riddler. It's definitely a darker take on the Riddler, kind of modeled after the Zodiac Killer. If you look at the kind of the promo art and the stuff that you see there, it could be very, very cool. The other side of this is you see the kind of balding guy and the chubby guy. That's the Penguin. It's their version of the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell. Now, I think there's a lot of in this stuff, and he doesn't play a very pivotal part in the movie. I think a lot of this is going to happen pretty quickly, where Batman kind of nails him pretty quick. You see that the fight scene, that's probably in the Iceberg Lounge, which is where the Penguin's headquarters were, and you see the stuff with the Batmobile where he's screaming and the Batmobile comes through the fire. I feel like that all happens as not the main plot point of the storyline. I feel like he just takes down Penguin in one of those things because there's a bigger story out there. We see a different version of Alfred, and we see a Bruce Wayne who hasn't quite figured out who he is yet. If you know the character of Batman, the Batman character is actually the real Bruce Wayne. It's Bruce Wayne, the playboy billionaire philanthropist, that is actually the disguise, because Batman himself is a very tortured, psychologically messed up hero. The only thing is, he set himself a rule that says he will not kill, which separates him from the people he's trying to take down. Pattinson looks like he can play the dark version of this. I'm not crazy about the suit. It looks clunky, it looks too armored and too militant for me. I was hoping they would get away from the armor, especially when they did the Affleck suit. Affleck looked like he walked right off the comic book pages, and Pattinson, this looks a little, to me, it just looks a little Bush League, but I am intrigued by the storyline. You don't know if Batman's friend or foe, you don't know what his relationship with Commissioner Gordon is going to be, and there's some really cool moments, like where he shows the signal, and he says it's not just a calling, it's also a warning. And then you see Selena Kyle, who is played by Zoe Kravitz, Catwoman. She looks spot on, the comic book. And there's a scene where he's just pounding a criminal, like brutally pounding a criminal, and she looks almost terrified as to what's going on there. It looks like it's going to be a pretty heavy, dark version of Batman, so I'm all for that. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's just, we'll see, man. It's not hard to mess up Batman. See Batman and Robin with Schwarzenegger, Uma Thurman, and George Clooney if you need a reference on how badly you can mess it up. Either way, DC Fandome delivered a couple of things. We got a couple of moments there, but there was some stuff we didn't get. Didn't see anything about Green Lantern. Didn't see anything about the Snyderverse. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, Warner Brothers called the Snyderverse a global phenomenon, so a lot of people who were hoping hashtag restore the Snyderverse was going to come to fruition. They wanted to see the Joker's take and the continuation of that Justice League, kind of that weird apocalyptic world. Don't know if that's going to happen yet. Don't know what's going to happen with Henry Cavill's Superman. Don't know what's going to happen with a lot of other things that are out there. Maybe they're still going to come to fruition, but for something that was supposed to be this epic event that you tuned in for 3 or 4 hours, though, it just didn't deliver a lot. And, Marvel's starting to dip in their toe into the multiverse thing. DC has always kept its movies and its TV separate and completely different universes, and Marvel kind of did a job of tying everything together. Well, now all this 3 different Batman kind of thing is confusing. 2 or 3 different Flashes is kind of confusing. There's a lot to take down. Again, you can check out the trailers again. They were pretty cool, but all in all, I think Fandom was a little bit of a letdown for the most part. It wasn't bad. I guess I just would have expected more. Either way, I'll see you at the movies. Thank you for watching. Follow me, Facebook, Insta, Twittergram, at Stephen Lewis on the air, and have a great day or night, wherever it is, wherever you are.